I call the Minister for Urban Infrastructure.
Well, thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Look, it is tough being the people's choice. It's tough being the people's choice when you're preferred by the rank and file. You've got a book, you've got a beer named after you, you're a disc jockey, but it's taken months and months and months to get a question and to get an MPI, because you lost out to Backroom Bill. Backroom Bill had the numbers in the party room, in the caucus, and unfortunately, being the people's choice, just didn't cut it. And what you soon learn in dealing with the member for Grayndler is you would go mad. You would go mad looking for internal consistency in what the member for Grayndler has to say. Here he is today, waxing indignant that we haven't immediately signed on to Labor's MetroNet proposal in Western Australia. I might add, step one of Labor's MetroNet proposal is the Perth to Forestfield Airport link, being delivered by the Barnett Western Australian government. I was at the sod turning myself with the Premier and with the State Minister just a few months ago. So we hear from the Shadow Minister that somehow this side of politics is claiming credit for things that Labor's done. It seems the Shadow Minister is not at all above doing that. And then he waxes indignant that we won't immediately sign on to MetroNet, at the same time as criticising this government for proceeding with projects before they've been approved by Infrastructure Australia. Where is the Infrastructure Australia approval of MetroNet? Shrieks of silence from the Shadow Minister on that particular issue. You would go mad looking for consistency from this man. But let's have a look at what he's had to say on WestConnex. Let's have a look at his inglorious record of inconsistency on WestConnex. What did we see from the Shadow Minister on WestConnex when he was in government? I'll read you a media release issued by the then Minister in 2013. The federal government has committed to providing funds towards the WestConnex road project. This infrastructure commitment is also helping Western and southwestern Sydney residents to cut back on travel times and improve the quality of life they can enjoy with their families. WestConnex was terrific. In fact, Labor committed $1.8 billion to WestConnex in the 2013 election, as yesterday's Auditor-General's report finds. Labor committed $1.8 million to WestConnex, and in 2014 the Shadow Minister was on the radio on Ellen Fanning's show, proudly trumpeting Labor's contribution to WestConnex. Here's what he had to say. Take WestConnex, for example. We funded the work in terms of planning, $25 million already spent from us, and $1.8 billion was included in last year's budget for the WestConnex project. There's the Shadow Minister, proudly beating his chest, claiming credit for WestConnex, $1.8 billion. But then something very mysterious happened. In 2016, the very same Shadow Minister, the very same project, here he is on ABC Radio with Fran Kelly. Fran Kelly asks him, "Did you provide that money?" And here's what he says. Listen very carefully. "We provided $25 million for planning, Fran. That's the whole point. They say they support planning. We provided $25 million, not for construction. Not a dollar did we provide for construction. 2014, we provided $1.8 billion. What heroes we are. 2016, no, I was nowhere near it. I was nowhere near it." Why did that happen? Why that inconsistency? I'll tell you why that inconsistency. Because he was running scared from the Greens. He was running scared from the Greens. The Greens threatened the member for Grayndler, the Greens threatened the member for Grayndler, and the Greens hate roads. The Greens hate road projects. And of course, all of a sudden, the member for Grayndler, it was a 180-degree turn with reverse pike and degree of difficulty. Nothing to do with WestConnex. Not me, he says. He tells a community meeting in his electorate that if he's the minister, not a dollar more for WestConnex. This architect of rank hypocrisy stands up and criticises this government on our infrastructure spending because it rankles with him. It rankles with him that we are spending more on infrastructure than occurred under the Labor government. These are the facts, Mr Deputy Speaker, that there is more spending from this government on infrastructure, and we hear this standard run of criticisms that we get for the Shadow Minister. In a speech in 2015, one of his best, he he criticised this government. He criticised this government for continuing with Labor projects like WestConnex and Northlink, and then he criticised us because we cancelled Labor projects. He runs this ridiculous argument, this factually incorrect argument, that there have been no new projects under a coalition government. Let's just go through some of them. The Toowoomba Second Range Crossing, 41 kilometres, $1.137 billion. The Northern Connector in Adelaide, 15 kilometres, $788 million. What about the Western Sydney Infrastructure Plan? The Northern Road being upgraded to 4 lanes all the way. The M12 from Western Sydney Airport, it will connect Western Sydney Airport to the M7, $2.87 billion of Commonwealth money committed to the Western Sydney Infrastructure Plan. Western Sydney Airport, of course, this government has committed to it, something that Labor never achieved. And Perth Freight Link, a commitment of nearly $1.2 billion. And then, of course, there's the other standard claim we hear, that there are no rail projects that this government is committing to. That's not true either. With this shadow minister, you've got to check the facts. The Perth Airport Forest Field Rail Link, $490 million committed by this government. $490 million from this government to Perth, to the Forest Field Rail Link. You claim that we're not spending any money on rail, and we are. The Flinders Link, connection between the Flinders University Medical Centre and the Adelaide Metropolitan Rail Link, $43 million. The Sydney Metro, a transformative rail project in Sydney, $1.7 billion committed by this government. Gold Coast Light Rail, $95 million. Canberra Light Rail, $67 million. Inland Rail, $894 million. So the claim that there are no new projects, completely wrong. The claim that there are no rail projects, completely wrong. You do not trust what you hear from this shadow minister, because the reality is, Mr Speaker, the reality is that this government is delivering on a $50 billion infrastructure program. Announced in 2014, our commitment was that the package we announced that night would take the government's total investment to $50 billion by the end of the decade, spending between 2013-14 and 2019-20, and we are well on track, precisely on track, towards delivering that. And then, of course, we hear this claim from the shadow minister that in some way the coalition government is spending less on infrastructure than Labor, and that is simply not true. Here's a simple comparison. Which I encourage anybody who's got the budget papers to engage in. Take the 4-year forward estimates in Labor's last 3 years, Labor's last 3 budgets, and the 4-year forward estimate spending on infrastructure in the coalition's first 3 budgets. The average under the coalition, $27.9 billion, 54% more than under Labor in the last 3 years. 54% more. Now, the fact is, Mr Deputy Speaker, the fact is that this government is spending more on infrastructure, and we are delivering on infrastructure projects all around the country, because infrastructure is vitally important to productivity, to efficiency, to getting people moving to and from work quickly, to getting freight moving around quickly, and it requires a careful planning and a careful distribution of projects. And so, Mr Deputy Speaker, the premise of the matter of public importance debate this afternoon is completely incorrect. This government has a comprehensive plan for infrastructure all around the country. There is an enormous range of projects underway. Let me just remind you of some of the projects that have been announced and or commenced since this government began. The North-South Corridor in Adelaide, the Northern Connector, $788 million. The East-West Link, $3 billion is available for any Victorian government that stands ready to build the East-West Link. The Western Sydney Infrastructure Package, $2.87 billion. The M80 Ring Road upgrade, $350 million. The The Monash Freeway upgrade, $500 million. The Murray Basin Freight Rail, $220 million. The Capital Metro and the ACT, $67 million. The projects go on and on. This government has a strong infrastructure.